Hello. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about vehicle financing and what you need to look out for when you are trying to buy a new car. So basically, you going to buy a new car is you going to a dealership, finding the car that you want, going to the bank, and basically saying to the bank, I want to spend this amount of money. This car is this much. How much can you guys borrow? Or can you borrow me the actual amount of the actual car? And how much is it going to cost? And like a property or a house, you also need to look at two payments, or not two payments, but basically two types of debt that you are looking at when you're buying a car. So you're looking at the principal debt. So let's talk about a car that's costing you 300,000 Rand. You're looking at the principal debt, which is 300,000 Rand. And then you're also looking at the interest debt that the bank will then charge you, right? So let's say the bank gives you an interest rate of 13%. I mean, Prime in South Africa is sitting at 10.5, but there are instances, especially for things like car loans, personal loans, where the interest rate can be much higher than what it would be on a home loan. So you also need to keep that at the back of your mind. Again, it is calculated according to your profile, your risk, what kind of a risk, what your risk profile is. So you also need to keep those in mind when you are, trying to go for a vehicle finance. You need to know that your finances need to be in order. Now, the second thing that you need to always do, and this is my father's advice to me, is that when you work out your finances, go through your finances and the disposable income that you have. Let's say you earn 20,000 Rand, you've got a disposable income of 7,000 Rand. Rather make sure that the car that you buy, the installment comes up to at least 2/3 of the 7,000 Rand. Don't use the whole 7,000 Rand to go and buy a car, because that's stupid. Because a car doesn't just come as a car, it comes with additional costs. We're looking at insurance, we're looking at a fuel. We're also then looking at things that may happen, mechanical breakdown that you need to account for. Because even if you get a service or a maintenance plan, it's not always that those things are going to cover anything that is missing from your car. I mean, I've got a maintenance and a service plan, and I take my car, but my service plan is only up until a certain amount of kilometers or after a certain amount of years. So usually I think it's 3 or 5 years, and your service plan is up to like a 75,000 or 115,000 Rand, depending obviously on the deal that you've brokered with your dealership. Right. So you need to be very, very, think thoroughly about you buying a car and how much money you actually want to spend on just the installment. Remember, the installment, you're paying the principal debt and the interest rate over the period of time that you have taken out this vehicle finance loan. Always try and make sure that your vehicle finance loan is a short period as possible. Sometimes you're allowed to even choose the amount of months that you want. You can choose from 36 months, you can go to 54 months, you can go up to 60 months. I know some banks do allow you to go up to 72 months for you to pay off your vehicle finance loan. So try and keep it as short as possible. But do remember that the shorter your period is, the higher your installment is. But if you've got a good job and you have money and you have that money in excess and you can pay the higher installment, rather do that as quickly as possible and get that out of the way. Because what you can do, if the bank can see that you're paying really well and you're paying additional money, if something does happen to you, let's say 3 years into the vehicle finance loan, you can always go sit with them and renegotiate that they rework out your installment and maybe try and give you additional years. So you still have that possibility that you can do that, but you then have to be a person who really pays very well. Now let's talk about actual banks and how they work, or actual dealerships, because the banks are not actually the mean people here. The mean people when buying a car are the dealerships, and you need to be very, very careful of the dealerships. First and foremost, when you are buying a car that has a balloon payment structure, you are being stupid. Because basically what it means, and I apologize if you are one of those people, but I do also apologize and I feel sorry for you and I sympathize with you if you went into it without knowing. A balloon payment basically means that you are buying a car that you can't afford. You actually really can't afford it, because all they do with a balloon payment is delay a certain amount, which is usually up to 30% of that vehicle finance loan that you need to pay as a lump sum at the end of your vehicle finance period. Now, what are the chances? What are the chances that after 5 years you're gonna have 81,000 Rand, 50,000 Rand, 66,000 Rand sitting somewhere and waiting for you to pay up that balloon payment? It's not usually something that people kind of think of and like, oh, Gonja, I'm a saver for my balloon payment. Rather just pay it throughout the 5 years, because you need to also remember that with a balloon payment, the bank borrows you 200,000, 300,000 Rand. part of the 30% of the 300,000 rand is then put aside as a balloon payment. But when you pay your installment, you are still paying the interest on that additional balloon payment amount. So throughout the 5 years, you are still paying the interest on the balloon payment amount. So basically, all it means that your installment goes lower, but at the end of the period, you must pay up a certain lump sum. And sometimes what happens is that people can't afford to pay it, and the bank will either force you to sell your car so that you can actually pay up that amount. So which means that you are leasing out a car for 5 years that you are never going to own. Or what they do is they refinance that additional amount that you need to pay, that residual amount, and then you're paying additional interest rates and probably a higher interest rate, because now they don't trust you as a person that they lend money to. So you need to always think of those things. Then the one last thing that I want to address is the when you go to the banks and actually try and get yourself the vehicle finance, and when you or versus when you ask your dealership to do that. You need to remember that dealerships are, some of them are actual crooks. So they will screw you over if you are not awake and you do not know how to read and you don't exercise your ability to read. Because what they do is that they will say to you, no, don't worry, we will get you a dealer trade. Basically, it means that they are going to structure your vehicle finance, and they'll say it's a VW loan, or it's a BMW loan, or a Mercedes-Benz loan. No, my friend, it is not that. They still need to go to somebody else to actually borrow that money. So basically, the bank will then say, okay, we'll give this person 11%. And then the dealership will come to you and say, okay, we're going to give it to you at 14%. Now, because you want this flashy car, and the thing is, the dealerships will always make sure that you get the car that you want. And because you want this flashy car that you actually cannot afford, then you are quick to say, okay, no, 13% doesn't look so bad, I can pay it, because then they elongate your period and you think, oh, what a great deal. No, my friend, you must be very clever and you must be very cautious when working with dealerships, because they can screw you over if you are not careful. So you need to always looking at those things. Unfortunately, I have to kind of quicken up this video because it's getting a bit long. The last thing that I want to talk about is that you must also remember the on-the-road costs that come with buying a car. So things that dealerships will then factor in are things like getting you your car registered, license plates. And also you need to know that if you've driven before and you actually have not paid tickets, the dealership cannot register your car. So therefore you can't be registered up until you clear out your tickets. So it's very important that you also think of those things before buying a car. Again, we live in a society where cars are no longer that important. They no longer mean status. So really, if you don't need a car, do not go out and buy a car. It does not make sense. It's convenient. Yes, we can't deny it's convenient to be able to move from A to B at your own time, at your own pace. But we all in traffic all the time. Have you ever calculated how much time you're actually in traffic? Then a car really doesn't make sense. So do keep in mind that only buy a car when necessary. Try carpooling with friends. Try getting lifts with friends. Use the train. Use public transport. I know it's not convenient. It's not safe. You'd rather be an accident that you cause yourself. But it might be the better option if you really can't afford a lot of, a very expensive car. And also, just buying an expensive car, you need to remember that the moment you drive your car off the floor, it's already lost an incredible amount of value. And so you need to also remember that, and remember that there are certain cars that incur high insurance rates purely because they're easier cars to hijack, easier cars to steal in South Africa. So also keep that in mind. And at your age, you don't need to buy a very expensive car if you are like young and just started a new job, or you're trying to just make it in life. Don't try and buy a GTI, because you really can't afford it, and it does not make sense to anyone, because you're not buying it for yourself. Even if you've always wanted a GTI, rather wait until you actually can afford to buy a GTI and then only go out and buy a GTI. And also, one last thing that I almost got bit by: don't get bitten by the new car bite, where you want to now go drive everywhere in the world because you just bought a new car and let everyone drive your car. Because let me tell you something, some insurance companies do not pay for a third party person driving your car. They don't pay for an extra driver. You will end up paying for that insurance by yourself. So those are some of the things that you need to keep in mind. And another one last thing that you should not become victim of is the fact that once you buy a car, in 6 months, you already want a new one. You already spotted a better car. Don't do that. Don't be that person. Mwah! Bye.